Welcome to our video series on more advanced features of Windows XP. In this video, we'll explore the power of the Task Manager. In this video, I'm going to quickly talk you through Control-Alt-Delete. And what that means is that you hold down the Control key, the CTRL key, and the Alt key and the Delete key together at the same time. And if you hold all those down, the Control-Alt-Delete, they're very powerful. And I would say that there are really a couple of reasons to do this. One is that if your computer starts behaving strangely, this overrides what's happening and allows you to have some control over things, as you'll see in a moment. Or alternatively, you can use it to see exactly what's going on with your computer. So press Control-Alt-Delete, and the Windows Task Manager appears. So if we go through the tabs, there's an Applications tab. That shows you what's running, and obviously it doesn't just tell you if Windows is running. If you're running Word, for example, that would appear here. If you're running Internet Explorer, it would appear here, and so on. And it shows you the status, such as not responding or things are fine and there's no problem. And then you can click on an application and choose to end it. And I've opened up Notepad, so it shows status running, so that's fine. So I can force an end task. And it's gone. That's useful to do when something stopped responding and you can't access it to shut it down. So you go to the Task Manager and select it, and you force an end to the task. Okay, Processes is really, Applications is telling you what software is running, and Processes tells you everything that's running, even in the background. There's a whole bunch of stuff that you generally aren't even aware of that's always running constantly, like iTunes Helper. It's not apparent to me that it's running, but it is. So this tells you all the processes that are running on your computer. Generally, you don't want to play around with this too much if you don't know what each process is, because if you shut down the wrong thing, it can really destabilize Windows and you'll have to reboot. But if you know what's causing problems, for example, there's no real reason for me to run iTunes Helper, so I can choose to end that process if I want to. I would say proceed with caution if you choose to end processes, but it's sometimes useful to know exactly what's happening on your computer if you could read through all of this. Okay, performance. This usually shows you what percentage of the usage of the CPU, the central processing unit. In other words, how hard is your computer thinking? 25%, it's not thinking that hard. 100% means that it's really working hard to calculate things. That's sometimes really useful to know. And it gives you some history here. Okay, PF stands for page file, and you really don't need to know this that much, but basically, the computer has RAM, which is memory, essentially the workspace in the computer. It uses RAM to store things temporarily. It doesn't just write things to the hard drive, but rather stores it in RAM while it's working on it. For example, when you open up Word, and while you're working on a document, it just sits in RAM, because that's essentially the short-term memory of the computer. But when RAM gets full, it starts saving stuff to the hard drive temporarily, and that's called a page file. So this is just telling you how much information was temporarily saved from RAM to the hard drive. And there's a whole bunch more stuff. Handles, threads, processes, and generally you don't need to understand this too much. Physical memory. How much RAM do I have? And okay, here it's showing me I have about 460 megabytes. How much is available, and so on. And there's also networking information here. And user information. Generally, Task Manager is most useful for closing down applications that aren't responding, and maybe for having a look at processes, and maybe having a look through this to close down processes that you're comfortable closing down, perhaps checking the performance if your computer is acting a little strangely. But most usefully, when your computer really is behaving strangely and you need to restart, rather than actually just holding down the power button to restart, you want to do that as a last resort because you can lose data that way, Here you can choose Shut Down and Standby, Turn Off, Restart, and sometimes doing this through the Task Manager is more successful than trying to do it through the Start menu when your computer is really behaving strangely. It doesn't always work, but it's worth a try. And if you do this, you try to restart when your computer is behaving strangely, and that doesn't work, then you really do have to try to wait it out for a few minutes to see if your computer recovers. If it really doesn't recover, then you'll have to hold down the power button and restart your computer from scratch, but you may, of course, lose some data.